Black Death. A name that summons only sorrow, fear, and a time when no one was safe. Death did not strike like lightning. It crept. It lingered. It settled into homes, into lungs, into blood. People had time to feel it coming, the fever, the swelling, the terror, and nothing could stop it. No remedy, no medicine, no prayer strong enough. So, what truly happened? Why did this plague wipe out up to 60% of Europe and leave an entire continent broken? Today, with the power of AI reconstruction, we take you back street by street, body by body, to show how the Black Death conquered Europe, turning ordinary doors into final thresholds and everyday life into a slow descent into darkness. The ships that shouldn't have docked. In October 1347, merchant ships arrived at the port of Messina, Sicily, sailing the familiar trade routes that linked Europe to the Black Sea world. They carried grain, cloth, spices, ordinary cargo that had moved these waters for centuries. Within days, people began to die. Contemporary accounts describe sudden fevers swelling in the groin and armpits and rapid collapse. The city tried to expel the ships. It was already too late. From Messina, the outbreak raced along the Mediterranean. Genoa, Venice, Marseille, each connected by commerce, each exposed by routine. No invasion force crossed the borders. No army marched. Trade did what it had always done. It connected people. This time, it connected death. Modern research confirms the cause as Yersinia pestis, a bacterium that thrives in complex chains of transmission, moving silently between animals, parasites, and humans. By the time Europe noticed, the disease had been traveling for years. Now step onto the dock. The air feels normal. Salt, tar, wet wood. Sailors shout. Merchants argue over prices. Ropes slap against the hull as the gangplank drops. Hands reach out to steady it, bare skin against frayed fiber. Somewhere below deck, something stirs in the dark. No one flinches. There is no smell of death yet. No warning bell. Just business. A sailor coughs and waves it off. A porter scratches his neck, irritated by a bite he doesn't see. Grain spills onto the stones. Children dart between barrels. The city breathes the ship in. The risk is not visible. It does not announce itself. It lingers in breath, in touch, in the spaces between bodies. By nightfall, it has already left the harbor. It is moving through alleys, climbing stairwells, settling into homes. Europe has opened the door, and the plague is inside. When the body turns against itself, look closer. This is where the plague truly wins. At first, it does not look deadly. A fever, chills, a crushing tiredness that feels like bad luck, not doom. Medieval people had no name for what was happening inside them, but they knew something was wrong when the pain began to gather. Within days, the body swelled in places no one wanted to show: the groin, the armpit, the neck. These hard, burning lumps grew larger by the hour. Walking became agony. Touch became unbearable. Many hid them under clothes, hoping the swelling would fade. It never did. For some, the disease went deeper. The blood itself seemed to rot. Skin darkened. Strength vanished without warning. A man could stand in the morning and collapse by afternoon. Confusion followed. Speech slowed. The body no longer obeyed. Families watched their loved ones slip away, while still breathing, still warm, already lost. Then came the most feared form, the one that turned air into a threat. A cough appeared, wet, painful, unstoppable. Breath burned the chest, blood-stained cloth. In cramped rooms with shuttered windows, every breath was shared. One sick person was enough. By the next day, another would fall. And another. People learned too late that staying close was deadly, but leaving was unthinkable. There was no cure to offer, no medicine to trust. Doctors argued, priests prayed, Neighbors stepped back. The sick were avoided not out of cruelty, but terror. Touch became a risk. Comfort became a gamble. Even water cups and bed sheets felt dangerous. The cruelest part was time. The plague rarely killed instantly. It gave people hours, sometimes days, to understand what was happening to them, to feel their body betray them piece by piece, to hear the coughing next door and wonder if it was already too late. By the time the symptoms were clear, escape was impossible, and the streets were about to learn what the body already knew. The street becomes a grave. Stand here. Please don't look away. In 1348, cities like London are no longer counting the sick. They are counting the dead. Ordinary churchyards cannot keep pace. The city opens emergency ground beyond its walls, places like East Smithfield, not for ceremony, but for capacity. This is not rumor. Modern excavations confirm what the streets already knew. These were plague burials, stacked close-placed fast, meant to keep up with a tide that would not slow. Now walk the roads leading there. Bodies lie outside houses because no one will carry them. Some are wrapped in cloth, some are not. They wait at doorsteps at corners along market lanes that were busy only days ago. The smell reaches you first, sweet, thick, clinging. Rot mixed with waste smoke and stagnant water. It fills the air so completely that people breathe through cloth, through sleeves, through clenched teeth. It does nothing. In Florence, witnesses describe carts rolling through streets already littered with the dead. Families stop opening doors. Windows stay shut. Voices drop to whispers. When a body is finally moved, it is done quickly, without pause, without farewell. Touch has become dangerous. Delay has become deadly. Follow the cart. Its wheels grind over stones slick with refuse. A bell rings, not in warning anymore, but habit. Each stop adds another weight, another shape, another human being reduced to a problem of space. At burial grounds, there is no time to dig deep. Trenches are reopened. Bodies are laid side by side, sometimes in rows, sometimes wherever they fit. Earth is thrown back just enough to cover skin. The ground swells and sinks as if it is breathing. There are no prayers here now, no names spoken aloud, just work. The destruction is not loud, it is efficient. Streets still stand. Houses remain upright, but life drains out of them. Shops are shuttered. Fires go untended. Animals wander where people once gathered. The city looks intact, but it smells wrong. It sounds wrong. It feels hollow. This is the moment the plague stops being personal. Death has spilled into the open, and the streets are no longer for the living. When fear needs a face, as the death toll rises, something else begins to spread through Europe faster than fever, faster than coughing, faster than the carts carrying bodies away. In February 1349, in the city of Strasbourg, the Black Death has already poisoned the air with fear. Long before proof, long before understanding a story spreads faster than sickness itself, the wells have been poisoned. The accusation settles on one target. The city does not wait for the plague to arrive in full force. It decides to act first. On February 14th, the Jewish population of Strasbourg is rounded up. Many are burned alive, others are killed or expelled. Chroniclers record the event not as chaos, but as a decision organized, announced, carried out in public. Property is seized. Debts vanish with their owners. The crowd tells itself this is protection. It is not. It is release. This is not an isolated madness. Along the Rhine corridor, the same pattern repeats. Basel, Mainz, Cologne. Rumor becomes verdict. Verdict becomes fire. People are forced to confess to crimes that make no sense. Wells are inspected, sealed, reopened. Nothing changes. People keep dying. The logic is simple and brutal. If death has a cause, then someone must be guilty. Even the church tries to intervene. Pope Clement VI issues decrees stating that Jews are not to blame, that the plague strikes Christians and non-Christians alike. In some papal cities, the violence slows. In many others, the message is ignored. Paper cannot compete with panic. Authority collapses the moment fear offers certainty. Then come the Flagellants. Columns of men march from town to town, stripping to the waist, beating their own backs until blood runs down their legs. They chant. They confess sins aloud. Crowds gather and follow them. Pain becomes proof. Spectacle becomes truth. Anyone who refuses to join looks suspicious. Anyone who questions them looks guilty. The plague has found a second body. It no longer needs bacteria alone. It moves through rumor. It spreads through blame. And it teaches cities how to destroy themselves before the disease finishes the job. When medicine deepened the nightmare, you may think medicine can end this nightmare. No. In truth, it only made it worse. In the middle of the 14th century, European medicine has no concept of infection bacteria or transmission. Doctors do not know what causes the plague. What they do know comes from ancient texts. Illness is blamed on corrupted air, imbalanced humors, and the influence of the stars. In 1348, the medical faculty of Paris officially declares that the plague is driven by poisoned atmosphere and planetary alignment. This conclusion shapes treatment across the continent. There are no antiseptics, no antibiotics, no understanding of dosage. Even basic chemical substances are scarce and poorly refined. Alcohol is weak and inconsistent. Mercury, sulfur, and arsenic appear in remedies not as cures, but as guesses. Most treatments aim not to kill disease, but to restore balance. The most common response is bloodletting. Already dehydrated and feverish patients are cut and drained, sometimes repeatedly. Others are forced to swallow bitter potions made from crushed minerals and herbs that poison as often as they soothe. Buboes are sliced open with unclean blades, releasing pain, blood, and fear, but rarely relief. Smoke fills sick rooms, as incense and herbs are burned to cleanse the air, choking lungs already struggling to breathe. And real doctors are rare. Trained physicians are expensive, few in number, and often absent. Many flee cities once the death rate climbs. Into that vacuum step opportunists. Self-proclaimed healers sell charms, powders, holy water, and secret formulas. They promise protection, immunity, miracles. Desperate people pay with coin, jewelry, even food. None of it works. Now step inside the sick room. The air is thick with smoke and sweat. Bowls catch dark blood beneath the bed. Cloths soaked in vinegar press against faces. A doctor stands back, avoiding touch, speaking in instructions rather than comfort. The patient is too weak to argue. The family watches helpless as strength drains away faster than the disease alone would have taken it. Soon fear shifts again. People stop calling for help. They hide symptoms. They refuse treatment. Hospitals become places where people go to die, not recover. By now, medicine is no longer a refuge. It is another risk. And as trust collapses, the plague continues, untouched, unchallenged, while Europe learns the cost of fighting the unknown with the wrong tools. Survival is not safety. Look around what remains. In London, the dying has slowed, but the city is no longer alive in the way it once was. Streets are quieter, not calmer. Windows stay shut long after sunrise. Smoke hangs low because fewer hands tend the fires. Wells sit unattended. Water tastes wrong. Dogs and pigs roam freely, tearing into refuse that no one has cleared. The smell has changed, less decay, more neglect. Nothing is repaired. Everything feels temporary. Now move north into the English countryside. Whole villages stand half-used. Fields lie unplanted, not because the soil failed, but because the people are gone. Grain rots in storage barns, while nearby hamlets ration crusts. Roads are passable but rarely traveled. Fear has broken the roots that once moved food and people. Markets reopen in fragments, a few stalls too far apart, voices low. Prices swing wildly. One week bread is cheap, the next it disappears. Pay attention to the workers who remain. Survival makes them valuable and expendable at the same time. Too few hands carry too much weight. Men work until collapse because no one can replace them. Roofs fall in because repairs never came. Wells cave in. Carts break and stay broken. A twisted ankle or crushed hand is no longer an inconvenience. It is a death sentence. Now look at the roads. Outside, Paris patrols are thin. Authority is present on paper, absent in practice. Banditry grows where law cannot travel. A lone walker is prey. A small group is watched. People move only when they must, carrying tools instead of possessions, eyes fixed on tree lines rather than horizons. Notice how fear lingers. In Florence, people still avoid touch months after the coughing stops. Conversations end quickly. Doors close early. Strangers are not welcomed, they are studied. Every illness feels like a warning. Every fever feels familiar. Children grow up surrounded by gaps, empty homes, missing names. Elders speak of a world before the plague, but it sounds unreal now, too crowded, too loud, too close. Understand this clearly. The Black Death no longer walks the streets, but the world it leaves behind is unstable, sharp, and unforgiving. And for those who survived, every step forward feels like walking across ground that might give way without warning. What rose from the ashes? However, there is still a bright corner. As the worst waves recede, Europe does not return to what it was. It begins cautiously to rethink how life is protected. The memory of mass death is too close, too detailed. Survival forces change. In Venice, a trading power that depends on open ports, officials confront a hard truth movement brings risk. Over time, the city develops dedicated isolation spaces on nearby islands, separating the sick and the suspected from the healthy. By the early 15th century, purpose-built lazarettos exist, places designed not for prayer alone, but for containment. It is a new idea taking shape. Disease can be slowed by organization. Across the Alps in Milan, authorities respond with harsh discipline. Streets are sealed. Houses are closed off. Neighborhoods are cut away from one another. The measures are blunt and often cruel, but they reveal something new, cities acting early decisively to limit spread. Control replaces confusion. Farther north in the Hanseatic world of Lübeck, trade resumes with caution. Ports inspect arrivals. Records improve. Urban councils begin to see sanitation, burial, and movement as civic duties, not private burdens. Commerce continues, but it adapts to risk rather than denying it. People change too. With so many gone, survivors discover leverage they never had. Workers leave abusive masters. Craftsmen set terms. Families relocate. The old assumption that people are replaceable no longer holds. Land remains. Skills do not. Human life gains weight in negotiations that once ignored it. Medicine shaken by failure grows quieter and sharper. Physicians begin to observe rather than recite. They write down symptoms. They compare outcomes. Confidence gives way to caution. Ancient authority no longer ends the conversation. This shift is slow, imperfect, and fragile, but it marks the beginning of learning from evidence, not fear. Life returns in careful steps. Markets open with space between stalls. Bells ring again, marking hours instead of deaths. Children grow up knowing that disaster is possible and that preparation matters. Memory becomes instruction. The Black Death stripped Europe to the bone, but from that exposure came something lasting: cities that plan, people who negotiate, and institutions that learn. Out of the darkest collapse, a harder, more aware world begins to stand. From the Black Death, Europe learned a brutal truth. Survival depends on preparation, not denial. Cities learn to organize to isolate danger, to protect the many, instead of blaming the few. People learn to adapt to negotiate, to rebuild with memory, instead of fear. Out of loss came systems awareness and resilience that would shape the modern world. If this reconstruction helped you see history differently, leave a like, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more haunting journeys into the past. Thank you for watching.